The story begins in a time of severe crisis, during a crushing famine that gripped the land of Judah and the town of Bethlehem. A respected man named Elimelech, desperate to save his family from starvation, made the agonizing decision to abandon the promised land. He took his wife Naomi and their 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion and journeyed eastward into the foreign, pagan country of Moab. This move was fraught with spiritual tension, a desperate exchange of the covenant land for mere survival. They sought temporary refuge, believing they could simply return when the hunger had passed. They were now outsiders in a hostile, idolatrous culture. Years passed in Moab, and the family endured a crushing series of heartbreaking tragedies that shattered their peace and security. First, the patriarch Elimelech died, leaving Naomi a widow in a strange and uninviting land. Her 2 sons married local Moabite women. Mahlon married Ruth, and Chilion married Orpah. For 10 years, the family tried to rebuild their shattered lives, clinging to a fragile sense of normalcy. Then a second, devastating blow struck the household. Both sons, Mahlon and Chilion, also died prematurely. Naomi was left utterly destitute, a triple widow with 2 foreign daughters-in-law swallowed by foreign soil. Naomi, stripped of her husband and both her sons, recognized the futility of remaining in Moab, a land that had brought her only sorrow and death. She finally heard the hopeful news that the Lord had visited his people in Bethlehem and ended the agonizing famine. A desperate hope stirred within her for the familiar solace and provision of her homeland. She began the long, difficult journey back toward Judah, accompanied by her 2 loyal, grieving daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah. The journey was not just physical. It was a psychological return to a life she barely remembered, weighted down by profound loss. As they walked the dusty road, Naomi was overwhelmed by a surge of selfless compassion for the 2 young foreign women walking beside her. She stopped and urged them to abandon her, to turn back to their familiar homes, their families, and the possibility of a normal life. "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home," she insisted, giving them her blessing and a final, painful farewell. She correctly explained that as an old widow, she had no remaining sons to offer them as husbands according to the custom of the time. The choice she offered was a profound test of familial loyalty against self-preservation. Both Ruth and Orpah wept bitterly, initially refusing to leave the woman who had become their spiritual mother and sole remaining connection to their husbands. The emotional tension was acute, a tearful standoff between love and logical necessity. Naomi persisted, emphasizing the hardship and uncertainty of life with her in impoverished Judah. The pressure of her logical argument finally proved too much for Orpah, who tragically yielded. She tearfully kissed Naomi goodbye and turned her face back toward the familiar, yet spiritually empty, land of Moab. Her choice was one of comfort over commitment, but Ruth clung to Naomi with a fierce, unbreakable resolve, refusing to be dismissed or persuaded to return to her people and her gods. Naomi made one final, desperate appeal, urging her to follow her sister-in-law's more sensible path. Ruth's response was one of the most powerful and profound declarations of loyalty in all of Scripture. Her declaration was about to seal her destiny and define her faith forever. Ruth looked into the eyes of her beloved mother-in-law and spoke the immortal words of profound commitment. "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you." Her promise then articulated a destiny shared, a spiritual union forged in sorrow. "For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge." She renounced her entire past, severing her ties to her homeland and its gods forever. Her final words were the absolute commitment to a new people and a new God. "Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God." Seeing Ruth's absolute fierce determination and recognizing the sincere depth of her commitment, Naomi finally ceased her attempts to dissuade her. The 2 women, one a grief-stricken Hebrew matriarch and the other a courageous, converted Moabite, continued the long, difficult journey together. They finally arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest, a time of new hope and provision. The appearance of the 2 widows walking into the familiar gates immediately sent a ripple of astonished gossip through the small town. The familiar sight of Naomi, though aged and heartbroken, caused the entire town to exclaim in surprise, "Is this Naomi?" They whispered, barely recognizing the woman who had left them years ago. Naomi, still wrestling with the bitterness of her loss, replied with a heavy heart, asking them not to call her Naomi, pleasant. She insisted they call her Mara, bitter. Convinced that the hand of the Almighty had dealt her only severe misfortune, she saw herself as a tragic figure, one whom the Lord had afflicted and left completely empty. The arrival was marked by public recognition and profound personal grief. Driven by immediate need and a sense of responsibility, Ruth immediately volunteered to go out into the fields to glean leftover grain behind the reapers. This was the work of the absolute poor, the desperate measure of the desolate, yet Ruth did it without shame or complaint. In a seeming accident of fate, Ruth happened to enter a field belonging to a wealthy, influential, and kind landowner named Boaz. This was the pivotal moment of divine providence, a divinely orchestrated coincidence that would reshape her future. The tension lay in whether the foreigner would be treated with harshness or grace. Boaz, arriving from Bethlehem, immediately noticed the beautiful, hard-working foreign woman toiling tirelessly behind his workers. He inquired about her identity and was told the touching, compelling story of her unwavering loyalty to Naomi. The reputation of Ruth's commitment had already preceded her, speaking volumes about her exceptional character. Boaz was deeply moved by the story of her selfless sacrifice and radical devotion to her mother-in-law. His initial glance quickly transformed into a profound admiration for the courageous foreign woman. Boaz approached Ruth and showed her immediate, extraordinary kindness that went far beyond the law's requirements for gleaning. He instructed her to remain exclusively in his field for the entire harvest, and to work only alongside his female servants, ensuring her safety and protection. Furthermore, he explicitly ordered his male workers not to touch her or harass her, a critical act of protection for the vulnerable foreigner. He even commanded them to deliberately pull out extra stalks of barley and leave them for her to find easily. The tension of her vulnerability was dramatically replaced by overwhelming, unexpected provision. Ruth, humbled and astonished by such extravagant, unsolicited kindness, fell prostrate at his feet in an act of deep gratitude and submission. "Why have I found such favor in your eyes?" she asked Boaz. "That you should take notice of me since I am a foreigner?" Her question acknowledged the cultural barrier and the social risk he was taking by protecting her. Boaz explained that he had been fully informed of her incredible devotion and sacrifice. He offered a beautiful blessing. "May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Boaz continued to show her conspicuous generosity, inviting her to share the midday meal with him and his workers, an act of high honor and inclusion. He personally offered her parched grain, ensuring she ate well and had more than enough to satisfy her hunger. Ruth, gathering an astonishing amount of grain that day, returned to Naomi in the evening with both the overflowing harvest and the generous leftovers from her meal. Naomi, seeing the immense provision, immediately knew this was no ordinary gleaning. Something divinely orchestrated was happening. When Ruth revealed that the generous landowner was Boaz, Naomi erupted with joyous, profound recognition of God's active faithfulness. Naomi, who had earlier declared herself Mara, bitter, now recognized a profound reversal of fortune. "Blessed be he by the Lord who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead," she exclaimed, her voice filled with hope. She revealed a crucial, previously unknown fact to Ruth. Boaz was not just a kind man, but a near kinsman, a potential family redeemer. The tension shifted from subsistence to the stunning possibility of complete restoration. Naomi, now realizing the full extent of God's providence, took strategic action to secure Ruth's future and the family's lineage. She instructed Ruth on a bold, risky, and unconventional course of action, typical of the dramatic customs of the time. At the end of the harvest, Ruth was to secretly go to the threshing floor where Boaz slept, uncover his feet, and lie down quietly. This symbolic act was a direct, formal, and public declaration of her intention to claim him as her kinsman redeemer. The risk of being misinterpreted or rejected created an immense, silent tension. In the middle of the night, Boaz awoke, startled to find a woman lying at his feet in the darkness of the threshing floor. He was immediately and justifiably alarmed, asking, "Who are you?" Ruth courageously presented her request with the traditional formula, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer." This act was a plea for protection, marriage, and the redemption of Naomi's family name and land. Boaz, recognizing the immense virtue and honor of her public bold claim, was once again overwhelmed by her integrity. Boaz immediately blessed Ruth for her great faithfulness, praising her for seeking security not among the young men, but in the lineage of her deceased husband. He was willing to accept the role of kinsman redeemer, but revealed one final, crucial complication. There was a kinsman closer than he was, one who held the first right of refusal to marry Ruth and redeem Elimelech's land. The possibility of the entire plan unraveling due to legal protocol created a final agonizing suspense for Ruth and Naomi. Boaz vowed to resolve the matter first thing in the morning. Boaz, acting with integrity and swift efficiency, publicly confronted the closer kinsman at the city gate before the elders, the legal assembly. He presented the man with the opportunity to redeem the land, a generous offer which the man readily accepted. However, Boaz then revealed the necessary condition. The redeemer must also marry Ruth the Moabitess, thereby restoring the family's lineage. The kinsman, unwilling to jeopardize his own inheritance, immediately yielded his right, symbolically taking off his sandal to confirm the legal transfer. The legal tension was resolved completely and publicly. Boaz immediately married Ruth, publicly redeeming both the land and the young Moabite widow, fulfilling the entire complex plan of God's providence. They soon welcomed a son, Obed, whose birth completely restored Naomi's broken spirit and shattered faith. The women of Bethlehem rejoiced, declaring that the Lord had given Naomi a redeemer, a restoration greater than 7 sons. This son, Obed, became the father of Jesse, who was the father of David, solidifying Ruth the Moabitess in the direct royal lineage of Israel's greatest king. The story of Ruth is a powerful narrative of loyalty, culminating in the complete redemption of a desperate family and securing the prophetic line of the Messiah.